There are a lot of budget on-camera monitors available these days, an almost overwhelming array of options. Well, how do you choose the one that might be best for you? How about one that offers a bit of new functionality? This is the Feelworld F5 Pro. It's a relatively budget-friendly but feature-packed on-camera monitor. It has a pretty cool trick up its sleeve. Turn it around here. Instead of having two NP-style battery sleds, on the other side, there is an adapter which allows you to put really any other device that takes Sony NP-style batteries and stick it on the back of this monitor. Not only can you mount it to the monitor, but the monitor will power whatever it is you put in this little adapter. You might be wondering, what is that for? How is that useful? I think the biggest, most obvious use case for something like that would be with a wireless video transmission system. I made a Sony a7S III cinema rig build video in the past, and one of the issues that I ran into was finding a good way to mount this wireless transmitter. Having this monitor back then would have made that problem essentially disappear. I also made a video about a budget, kind of janky wireless follow focus system. In that video, I had a cage for the monitor I was using, which added a lot of additional mounting points to the monitor. So that gave me a place to mount this, but still it was kind of big. It was kind of hanging off the top of the monitor. Now, having this would have made both of those situations a lot more simple. A lot simpler. Not only does it give you a place to mount something, but as you can see, it's powered with the same battery that's powering the monitor. This isn't the first and only monitor that has that bit of functionality. I know that Feelworld has at least one other one, but this is a 500-nit monitor and it's relatively affordable. I didn't check the price. I think it's around $130-ish. I know there's a 3000-nit monitor from Feelworld that has this functionality too, but I would imagine that monitor is going to be a lot more expensive than this one. We're going to get into the pros and cons of this, but let me first kind of run down some of the features of this monitor because, like I mentioned in the intro, it pretty much does everything that you would need a monitor to do. It's fully touch enabled. So double tap on the front of the monitor will bring up the menu, and you can also bring up the menu with the array of buttons on the top. If you swipe on the right side of the monitor, that will control the volume. You can monitor your camera's audio with this. There's a built-in 3.5mm headphone jack here on the bottom. If you swipe on the left side of the monitor, that will control the monitor's backlighting. And swiping up from the bottom brings up a quick menu with a lot of probably most used features that you might want quick access to. There's a lot of powering options. You have a DC input here, so you can power the battery from an external power source, not just with an NP battery on the back. There's also a DC output, so you can run power to another device using whatever's powering the monitor. There is a USB-C input here, which is for firmware updates. It's also for loading up to 32 LUTs into the monitor, but you can also power the monitor via the USB-C port on the bottom. It has HDMI in, and it also has HDMI out, so you can pass the HDMI signal to another device, which is awesome as well. It has every monitoring tool you could want in terms of exposure. It's got waveforms, histograms, and it also has false color, which is really nice. False color also has the indicator or the legend over here, so you can quickly see what all the colors mean in terms of exposure. That false color is assigned to function 1, and then function 2 also defaults to focus peaking, but you can customize function 1 and function 2 to whatever you want. There's also vector scope, so you can dial in the colors, see how saturated your image is, etc., etc. Another really cool feature is that it's pinch to punch or pinch to zoom, so you can focus magnify by just doing the pinch method. And that works pretty well. Pretty much everything that you could need to dial in your image, monitor it for different formats, different aspect ratios, all of the exposure tools that you could possibly want. Let me quickly show you what comes with the monitor. It does come with a full-size HDMI to micro HDMI. It comes with a mount. It's a pretty typical kind of mount that you might get with a monitor like this. It just slots into the shoe accessory mount on your camera or on your cage, and then you screw the monitor into the side of the arm. So it's pretty nice because it allows you to rotate the monitor forward and back, so you can view yourself if you're talking to camera, and then you can flip it around if you're behind the camera. The mount feels pretty good. I think it's probably made out of aluminum. It's pretty thick, very sturdy. These aren't my favorite solutions. It's nice that they have them in here, but the threading on here isn't super long, so when you unscrew it a little bit to rotate the monitor, there's a chance you might unscrew it all the way and the monitor might fall off, so you just kind of have to be careful with it. And lastly, it comes with a USB Type A to Type C adapter, and this is important because in order to input custom LUTs into this monitor, you're gonna need a thumb drive. When I first got this monitor, I was like, how do you load custom LUTs in here? What do you use? I was thinking, plug it into my computer, that doesn't work. Plug it into an external hard drive, then I have to format the hard drive. And then the rep was like, use a thumb drive. And I was like, oh yeah, those are a thing. I have a drawer full of these, but I totally forgot they exist. If you have an older thumb drive like this one, this Type A, now you've got a Type C adapter. Last thing I want to show you is that you can power both the monitor and whatever it is you have plugged into that adapter with an external power supply. So I've got a V-mount battery here. So I'm just going to plug in to the DC input on the side of the monitor. And then I'm going to take out the NP battery, see if it's hot swappable. Boom. It's hot swappable, it didn't turn off, so that's cool. And as you can see, the transmitter is still on. If you do want to fully rig up your camera, the fewer batteries you can have on it, the better. The more things you can power with a big V-mount or gold mount battery, it's going to make everything much more streamlined, much lighter weight, much more balanced too. It has this little cross pattern, and there are two Phillips head screws here. If you just loosen those screws a little bit, then you can move this adapter up and down, left and right, so that you can mount whatever it is you want to mount in the best position possible. Normally I would do a pros and cons. I feel like I've talked up the pros of this monitor already. There's a lot of them, a lot of great features, a lot of great functionality. So in terms of the negatives, it is only a 500 nit monitor. You can get 1,000 and 3,000 nit monitors these days. So in terms of viewing it in bright conditions, outdoors, it might struggle depending on the positioning of the lights. On the plus side, it does come with a pretty nifty sunshade. So this is in two pieces. You've got the Velcro outer shade part that just Velcros onto the plastic clip, or the plastic frame, I should say. And then that just fits right over the front side of the monitor. It's really not that hard to get in place. I'm just kind of doing things sideways here. So that makes it much more viewable, and it's really easy to take on and off. So bring it and then just throw it on when you need it, take it off when you don't. The glass is very reflective, which is every monitor I've ever seen has a reflective glass surface, very shiny, mirror-like. That also contributes to the difficulty of viewing it in bright conditions. And since it's touch screen, you may have a bunch of fingerprints on there, further obscuring your viewing outdoors. On the other hand, you can look at the positives. If you're a glass half full kind of person, 500 nit monitor won't go through batteries quite so fast, and it also will run a lot cooler. This monitor does not have an internal fan. It's passively cooled, so it's not going to make any noise. The only other negative that I can think of is the build quality isn't exceptional, but that's not surprising considering the price of this. The housing, the build is all plastic. It doesn't really feel cheap, but it's definitely not going to compete with something from Small HD, for instance. But then again, you'd probably pay 10 times the price for a Small HD with all the functionality of this monitor. Of course, everything is a trade-off in terms of budget and usefulness. I was about to publish this video, but there's one complaint potentially that I really wanted to address. I didn't think I should let it go without addressing it. That's the orientation of this mount. I've since rotated it, but as you probably noticed when I was mounting this transmitter, the connectors, the pins are on the bottom. So you slide it from the bottom and then push up. To me, that seems backwards. And I'm sure there's a reason they did it that way. There's a ton of different transmitters and they all have kind of different orientations. This one is meant to be like horizontal. This is its upright position. But when you mount it to this, then it goes into this kind of sideways position. And when this sled is mounted in the bottom to top position, then the antennas are going to conflict with the battery. Another reason why I feel like it's backwards is when you're detaching something, if you kind of have to give it a yank, and you could potentially smash your lens. Now you could just mount the monitor upside down and then flip the image 180 degrees, problem solved. That would be the easiest solution. Otherwise, you could also try to just unscrew this altogether and then just flip it. The wires inside there's a lot of slack, so there's enough room to rotate it You might have a little bit of difficulty if you do that, getting the wires to fit. I would just recommend just mounting the monitor upside down and then flipping the image. That wraps up my little demo and my thoughts on the Feelworld F5 Pro. If you have any questions, you know where they go. As always, I appreciate you watching the video, and maybe I'll see you in another one.